do like the old music better, but it's starting to warm up to me. The new temp check music. So, and we should freshen up every once in a while, right? Like that's that's. Hello, everyone. Hope that you're all doing amazing out there. It is Thursday, which means it's time for the Thursday temperature check from Proposal Industry Experts. My name is Ben Klein. I'm the owner of Geek Proposals and also the Chief Recipe Officer here at Pi. And with me today, continuing in our initial series of introducing the Baker's Dozen. The Baker's Dozen, of course, are the 13 industry professionals who advise us on the direction of Pi as a community, what we need to be investing our time in, what we need to be bringing to y'all. Anyways, and then as a way of like making this connection, we are bringing the BD on to present to you. So today we have Steven Alvarez, and I love the fact that you're rocking the APPE as numbers, but you're up in the Philadelphia area, is that right? And you're operating as a proposal manager, and then also you have like a whole whack load of stuff with SMPS and everything else. So why don't you, I can't do you justice, but Steven has been a Baker's Dozen for 2 years now. Fantastic insight and fantastic information, and honestly, just a really, really good human being. The number of times that you have sent me, hey, give yourself some grace, or be patient with yourself, or something else, which was just the right emotional level at the right moment.
This is being recorded, right?
This is being recorded.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll use this later.
Do you want me to play this? I am happy to like bang the gong for you anytime you want. All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move directly into the topic. Yeah.
Sounds good. So I'm Steven Alvarez. I'm a marketing specialist at Stantec. I've been in the industry now for about 10 years. And like Ben said, I wear many, many, many hats, like a lot of us in marketing that we do. So along with my role at Stantec, I'm also the Director of Chapter Relations at SMPS Philadelphia, where I focus primarily on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as creating partnerships with other professional groups in the area. With Pi, I'm part of the Baker's Dozen Advisory Board, which has been a really exceptional group to be a part of for the past couple of years. And it's really interesting to see how it ebbs and flows and changes and grows based on who's in the room talking with us. So I really appreciate hearing the different voices and having different people joining us in that cohort. What else do I do? I recently was appointed as a co-chair to the Pride at Stantec ERG for the Quad State region. So that's New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And yeah, so that's, I probably do wear more hats now that I'm thinking about it. With SMPS, I do a lot of different things, like help out with programming, help out with the education teams, do a lot of admin. I've jumped in on helping out on the website this year because there was just a need for it. And the people on my team had different skill sets where I was like, we can handle that. So we're jumping in and just taking what we can. And I think that's really kind of in line with our topic today of not being able to say no, or people pleasing, or there's a number of different ways that we can call it. But I think one of the things that marketing professionals, particularly proposal professionals, do is that we like to help. Mm-hmm. And that can be as generally applied as you want. If I see or hear somebody struggling with something, I want to help them. So I have people that reach out to me now because I helped them once, and I'm going to help them forever now because that's, I was helpful in that one moment. But those are those moments where once you do it once and they do keep coming back to you, when can you say no? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to soil any relationships. You don't want to push anybody in a weird direction. But you also do need to establish some kind of boundaries. And so that's something that I struggle with all the time, setting boundaries. And I think, a lot of where I kind of get hung up on is some of the stuff that I've heard in the past. And it kind of just lives in my brain. And sometimes it's a really hard time to move past some of these things. Because, I'll remember that somebody once said, I wish I had a good example of timed already, but somebody told me once, like, the reason why we don't want to co-brand a proposal and you hear it and you're like, okay, this is like, I understand where you're coming from, but in this instance I might want to. And so being able to push back on some of those more firm kind of decisions, it becomes a skill that we have to build. And again, I'm not perfect at it. I'm not very good at it at all, but I'm willing to acknowledge it and talk about it. And I think that's a great first step.
Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, let's dive right in then, right? I think for you are you were probably discounting your domestic life in there for like all the things that you put a hat on for. Um,
There's all of that too. Yes, I'm focused on work right now because we're here.
but yeah, so I mean, I resonate with all the things that you're saying. I have this problem all the time. I used to like chalk it up to like being like an insecure financial consultant, not like as in insecure financially as a consultant. But like it sounds like it occurs even within employed proposal professionals and stuff like that. So, like we're not going to solve this necessarily, but do you have any insight about where it's coming from? Like, is it just the nature of the people who gravitate to this? Like, is it, hey, we're all ENT whatevers and we go this way, or is it something more like the nature of the position?
I think there's a few different things that help get
Yeah.
all of us to this same kind of spot. One of them is imposter syndrome, and that's something that we're going to talk about a couple of different times throughout this conversation, because a lot of us find ourselves in this work. It's not something we went to school for. It's not something that there is a program to go learn from. You either find yourself in this work and you figure out how to do it, or if you're lucky enough to find a mentor or somebody who can teach you stuff along the way. That's really the key element of successful, being successful as a marketing manager at this point. I remember when I first started in the industry 10 years ago, I was super excited because I had 2 weeks time to overlap with my predecessor. And I was like, great, I'm actually going to learn something. And throughout that process, he was in the process of selling his house. So I didn't learn too much from him because he was just on phone calls all the time. And, I understood that, but I was also very frustrated that I wasn't getting the on-the-job training that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I went to SMPS Philadelphia kind of as a way to expand my education. Particularly, there was one event called the Proposal Roundtable where everybody came with a proposal and they shared it on the table and people got to flip through it and ask questions. And that was exactly what I needed. I was able to look at how other people were doing it because I inherited a template, but also I didn't have any experience. So my understanding of the template was you fill it out and you send it in. I wasn't quite fully confident enough in my own skills to be like, all right, here's the template. I'm going to bend the rules here a little bit. And that's become something that, as I've progressed throughout the years, we've had our ups and downs, we've had some bumps in the road. But overall, the progression is upward. And that's what I think is where I'm going to keep my focus. I've been put out of jobs before, and that was very frustrating. And then, but not letting that kind of stop me entirely. And I had to come back to myself and realize I am good at what I do here. I am good at this type of work. It is very hard. It is very stressful. And you have to work with a lot of different personalities. And that's part of what I love about this work is that you get to meet a lot of different people from different walks of life. And so, as you were mentioning earlier about the initials after my name, there's a reason why I keep that up there everywhere I go. It's because I want people to understand that just like they have, I've put in some time to learn something and I will keep that credential there. So when they look at my name, they go, oh, he did something. They don't have to know what it is. That's fine by me. But when I read their AIA or their, engineering PE stuff, to me, I was like, oh, this is a way where I can elevate myself.
Yeah.
By giving myself a credential, and then they can see that I have this kind of credential. And so, I've been using elements like that to kind of elevate myself within the workforce. And then also, more so recently, exercising using my voice. I am a very shy person. I don't really like talking in front of large groups of people, but I've been able to find opportunities like speaking into a camera where it's much more comfortable for me. So I know, like maybe a conference isn't the right thing for me to do right this minute while I continue to build these skills. But using elements like this and presenting at the Recipes for Winning conference in August is allowing me to practice some of these skills. And then even better, I get to go rewatch it. And well, I like to call it cringe watching because it's just awful. Nobody likes watching themselves, but it's a really good learning experience, especially for things like me clearing my throat or saying, those are things that you want to be able to see at some point so you can try to work to get better at not doing them in the future. And another thing that I also like to say is we're all a work in progress. So don't be so hard on yourself while you're trying to build up these skills. You'll get there. Just keep trying. And sometimes it's not going to be as successful as others, and that's okay.
No, it's perfectly fair. So Kathleen writes, introverts unite in separate spaces. So thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, like again, I resonate with all this. So I want to take apart because you said a lot there. So the first piece around imposter syndrome being linked to like we all fall into this position. And I've always looked at the falling into this position as a problem for the company because they don't know how to price us. That's why we see these wide scales of like $35,000 a year proposal managers all the way up to this guy that I worked with 2 years ago for nuclear bids that was making 270,000 euros a year. And it was just like, yeah, just this, but it is very interesting to say that because we don't have a stringent academic background, yeah, you're right. Like I could see a lot of people kind of being like, do I actually perform like a real function here? Am I actually like good at what I'm saying? Do I have the authority to advise people on how this bid should go out or how this messaging is? Like I could see that. And the humorous part is like Rin and I, when Rin was still with Pi, we had this conversation all the time. Like, is it possible that we are just slightly competent monkeys? Or are we actually like professionals in our positions that like know what we're doing and know what we're talking about and stuff like that? So that makes a lot of sense to me. And I could see myself like if as soon as I feel insecure, I agree. I tend to go to like, I've got to be an acts of service. I've got to be a servant leader. I've got to be all these things. I got to be like everything for everyone. I got to be hyper available. I'm super afraid. But then you transitioned, and your next piece was around just the idea of like, hey, you need to like build your voice. And this sounds more like a solution of like, hey, I need to speak up on things. And do you feel that that's been augmented with time, or is that like just, hey, this is a deliberate thing? Like I'm confident enough in myself right now that I'm going to raise my voice.
That's an interesting one because, throughout the proposal process, particularly, there is an understanding that it's a slight battle. We are trying to make the product as best as it possibly can be. And sometimes that means challenging what's in it or what we're being told to put in it. And it's taken me a long time to get comfortable with saying things along the nature of like, I don't think this is the right direction. I think this, and here's why. And from people that I've learned from in the past, people that I've worked with, other as my managers or whatever, or people that I've worked on a proposal with as a subject matter expert, I'm learning from them throughout every step of the way. It might just be how they work, but that will be valuable the next time I come back to working with them. And so I try to, I'm not like a copious note taker, but I do remember people when I have something that's not really work related that I could attach to it. Mm-hmm. So I had, an engineer who his focus is muscles and muscle relocation during construction. No, like muscles in the water. Go. So like when we're removing a dam, if there's muscles in the water, we have to move them during construction, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And his level of knowledge was just well beyond talking to a normal person. So I had to talk to him and spend some time with him and kind of bring down his smartness to a place where I could approach it. All I needed was that entry point. So once I can start getting into it, I can then start asking questions. And instead of framing it as I'm asking questions because I don't understand or because I don't know something, I am asking because I am curious. And that
Mhm.
curiosity is, at least from my experiences, has been really well received. And then once they understand that you do have some level of curiosity, then they want to share everything. And
Mhm.
so it becomes really interesting because you can learn so much. Like, I know so much about dams. I know so much about muscle relocation. I know a lot about river and stream restorations, not because I'm an engineer, but because I'm helping put together these proposals. And so it's a learning opportunity for me. And so I kind of keep framing it things like that because I know if I'm not learning, I'm getting bored.
Mhm.
And when I get bored, I will start getting distracted easily. And so it's better for me to find something of interest that I can keep going back to. And so I always try to find something interesting within any proposal that I'm working on, that I can at least be like, this is something that I'm learning and it's new and it's interesting. And even if it's, depending on your project types, my scope is quite wide. you know I remember working on a wastewater treatment plant early on at my time with Stantec, and I learned so much through that process because I got to sit down with an engineer and just ask questions about how the whole thing works.
Mhm.
Because there were things that just didn't quite make sense to me. And we were trying to develop a diagram for a proposal. And so I was like, I'm really struggling to understand from point A to point C. I understand there's B in between, but I don't get how it all connects.
Mhm.
And so she sat down and drew everything out on a piece of paper, sent it over to me, and I was like, great, I'm going to start with this. And I recreated it as a graphic. And then I highlighted all the areas where I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And so
Mhm.
then we sat down and I just was like, hey, like this part to me, I would think it needs to connect here, but we have it connecting down here. And then she explained, oh, it goes through this process first and then it goes into that. And I was just like, these are the things that I need. Like, I need explained to me because it's just so complicated. It's complex. And because of all of that, it became so much more interesting. So now when I get a wastewater treatment plant proposal, any kind of work related to one, it's automatically interesting because I'm like, oh, this piece fits into this part of that process. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just really fun. And so that's kind of how I keep pushing myself forward and keep moving things in that direction. Is if I'm not learning, then I'm going to start losing interest, and I want to keep my interest, and I want to keep learning, and that's what keeps me engaged every day. That's what keeps me coming back.
Sure. And so there's a theme there because basically you're indicating like, hey, by putting letters after my name, I'm indicating to the world that like I have like a certain level of sophistication or a certain level of like education that like combats that imposter syndrome and so makes you able to like step up.
Yep.
And at the same time, then you are also saying, hey, by becoming curious about something, obviously it opens the door for people because who doesn't want to explain what they do for a living or whatever. But like by generating that educational opportunity for yourself, you build confidence in your understanding of what's going on, and ultimately, like I suspect that's what makes you a good proposal manager because your ability, like we both know that like proposals are read very little, and it is not just like two expert engineers talking to each other. It's going to go through like some person who has zero understanding of wastewater, and so if you as a layperson can create like a little bit of understanding or a little bit of catch, then ultimately that should be your entire goal almost for the proposal because everything else you put in there will likely not get read. So,
I respond to those words that you just used right there,
yeah.
um, about speaking directly to them. I'm losing my train of thought. What were you just saying?
I was talking about the idea that like you were building confidence in yourself, but then ultimately that curiosity probably serves another purpose and that it makes you a good proposal manager because your ability to message or communicate to a layperson becomes valuable.
So that was the part. So during that whole process of the diagram, developing that diagram, I kept asking questions like that, like explain it to me as if I'm not an engineer because I'm not, and I
Mhm.
kind of guaranteeing you that the people that are making the decision financially are not engineers also. However, they do have engineers that they can ask questions to. So, we don't have to dumb the language all the way down, but we need to make it accessible.
Mhm.
And so, think about who your client is, but also think about who's going to be reviewing it. Sometimes you do get the list and you're like, oh, this person's going to be able to speak all the high tech language that we have in here. Great. But these people might need to have something that's just a little bit more digestible and easy to understand. And, they're not focused on those, like the technical side of things. They're probably focused on other things, more administrative side, more, are we hitting all the goals and requirements of this RFP? And so there's different people reviewing with different lenses, and that's something that you should always be keeping in mind. And in kind of catering to them a little bit. So like sometimes I know if a person is of a certain age and they're going to be reviewing my thing, I'm not going to use the 9-point font. I might bump that up to 11. Just make it a little bit easier for them to understand, easier for them to read. Because, I think about it as if I were on the other end, if I was the client and I got 10 proposals, do I want to read all of them? No, I'm going to try to find ways to cut some out so I can just focus on the ones that meet the mark. And that happens a lot. So it's, trying to get yourself through that process so you can make sure that you're there at the end, that your proposal will actually be evaluated start to finish.
Okay. So all of it sounds really good. Like what I'm hearing here, going back to your original topic, is the idea that you build confidence in yourself as a way to combat imposter syndrome and as a way to like maybe stop setting up boundaries. But let's talk about some of the other stuff. Like you also mentioned that like by showing curiosity, you're developing a relationship with these individuals. And I sometimes think that people pleasing does, because we do have to make a lot of relationships in our role, and we have to rely on a lot of people to get the proposal out the door. Sometimes it's just hard to say no to someone you know.
Absolutely. So today I was on a kickoff call with a teammate, and we were talking about one project. And at the very end, he was like, "I have this other project that that I also want to go after." And I was just like, "Great! Why are you bringing that to my attention? It needs to go to my manager. I know what you're trying to do, but let me correct this." So I was like, "You know what? Let's make sure we get that over to my manager. Make sure you put in that information that you just told me about having a good go by as a reference. And also, you already have an idea of your org chart. Put that in that email so it's all there together." And then as soon as that left my mouth, I was like, "And then we'll assign it to, we're going to assign it to me because my other teammate's going to be doing this next week and my manager's going to be doing this next week. So this will be coming back to me, yes, but please just make sure you email it to her. So make sure we get it right in the right processes and we all are understanding of, what goes where." And it really does help, having a one main point of contact, particularly for our team, especially in the past few months. We've, had some flex. We lost a teammate. She took on a new role within the company. So we had an opening, but that just meant that our workloads kind of raised up a bit. I also jammed a vacation into that time. So it just really kind of added up. And so now we're still playing a little bit of catch up, but we're also positioning ourselves and planning for the future, knowing that this new person's coming on in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, I welcome a setup like that where there is a single point of contact that assigns work inside the proposal department, because it's true. If people just come to me, I will not protect myself. I will say yes to it all, and I will get overwhelmed and I will do bad work. And that's the pattern I've seen so many times. Yeah.
My big one is when I submit the proposal, I kind of put it out of my brain, and then if there's an interview that comes up later on, I don't always have that in my work plan. And then it will pop up and I'm like, "Oh, great. Yeah, I got to do that." And I'll jump right onto it. But I'm like, wait. I did not consider my other things going on right now. Can I actually do this? And so I've gotten myself into a couple of situations where I'm like, I don't think I can do this. So how am I going to get this done? And, fortunately, I have a great team where I can lean on people. We can hand off stuff. And we have a system with our InDesign files that handing off things is actually easy to do at this point. So we built up this system so it works for us, so we can make sure that we keep moving forward in the way that we want to.
Sounds like another topic for Bob. Eagerly willing to steal someone else's IP. All right. So this has been good, I think. So You've recognized kind of 2 points of areas where you create people pleasing. You've created like 2 solutions for yourself, but it's still not enough. And so therein comes like your we're all work in progress kind of attitude and stuff like that. Are there any other suggestions you can make or the people listening about things that you've experimented with or tried to like help kind of control or put some
So
guardrails?
I'm all about trying something if you think it might help your workflow. If
Yeah.
that means, like at a previous role, I used Microsoft Planner. That really worked out well while I was in that role. It would
Mhm.
not work out well in my current role. And knowing things like that, it's good to know about them, but you might not always use them. And then the fun part is, and and who knows how long somebody else is going to bring that same topic up, and you can be like, oh, I have some experience. It's been a little old, so I can share with you what I know, but that's, I can't tell you what the new features are, that kind of stuff. But I think that's, what, now that I hear myself talking, the thing that I really like doing is sharing knowledge.
Mhm.
And I think when I started in this industry, I didn't get that training. So I did what I could to learn as much as I could from other people. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, I need to give that back. There are new people, new marketers just starting out. How can I help them get over some of that nonsense that I dealt with when I first changed careers?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving your time. Now, with that in mind, we are 4 minutes from the end ish. Depending on how much over we go today. Uh, what we've been trying to do is because we've been bringing on people who are experienced professionals, we have been trying to like get a tail from the pitch. So this is something that's happened in your proposal journey that has been interesting, wild, upsetting, whatever. So lay it on us. I'm sure that in your history you've got one for us. So
Oh my God, I've got tons. And then I have to go through which ones am I allowed to talk about versus which ones am I not allowed to talk about. So this one um, kind of continues in the vein of people pleasing, but it came from a different angle, actually. So I was working on a proposal. And at this point, I was working directly with the partners on all of it. And the one partner that I was working with stopped responding to me. And
mhm.
again, I was remote, so it wasn't like I can just go and knock on the door and talk to them directly. I had to email, I had to call, I had to wait for some kind of response back. After too many times reaching out, I went to my manager. I was just like, hey, what can I do? I've emailed, I've teamed, I've called. I'm not getting anything that I need. And this proposal is due. Like, it's due. Like, we got to get this done. And I was told that I kind of pushed a little too hard in those moments. And I was just like, I understand that I could be seen as demanding, but
Mhm.
you do understand that my goal is to finish the proposal on time and get it submitted. And they were like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, so I do need some kind of authority to be able to push back. And we need some kind of way to hold them accountable. I'm not asking them to move the world. I'm asking them to provide to me with what they said they would provide to me by when they said they would.
Mhm.
And for every deadline missed, it pushes everything that I have to do. So it condenses the time that I actually have to work.
Mhm.
And the deadline's not shifting. So that's going to stay firm. So sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, well, you missed your deadline so much that now I have a full proposal to do in 2 days. And I'm not going to be pleasant. It's going
Mhm.
to be very stressful. And I need you to respond immediately. What my manager told me in that instance was that my name is not on the door. And
Oh!
I honestly, at that moment, was just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I think what they were trying to communicate to me was that I was caring too much and I couldn't force somebody else to care as much as I did. And that was so frustrating to hear because, again, in my brain, I'm like, we're working on a common goal.
Mhm.
And I see you work in your project teams in that same way all the time. Why can't we have the same relationship here in marketing? And so there was a disconnect there, and it was very frustrating. And My name's not on the door. So I walked right out of that door.
Okay. That's solid. Way to protect yourself. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, Steven. A fun-ish Tales from the Pitch, but yeah, good way to protect yourself inside the proposal industry. And I'm sure that all of us have similar stories, or not similar stories, but we all have stories of disrespect or avoidance by individuals. All right, so it is Thursday. Hope you're going into the weekend with not a lot of bids on your plate. Hope that everything is going to go fine for y'all and you'll be safe out there. In the proposal industry experts community, Rochelle will be back. She is taking her. I don't know. I don't know if I can say it, but she is off doing something fun, which is great. She'll be back next week. We have our new calendar up for the month. We've got some co-working time in there and some other stuff. And of course, we are the Baker's Dozen are actively working on giving us some feedback on some of the stuff that we've received. So yeah, hopefully we should be able to roll out a bunch of things this month for Ella. But that's basically it for the Thursday temperature check. Steven, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, your insight is always valuable. If I can do anything to elude your imposter syndrome, you sound like a consummate professional here. So well done to you. You are always a breath of fresh air inside our Baker's Dozen meeting. So really, really appreciate you. And yeah, hope that you continue to do well. All right. With that in mind, we'll see you next Thursday. I am supposed to be putting up some sort of branding show to like lead us out, and I will do that now and then screw it up like I always do. All right.
Take care.